Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
I want to welcome you back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Eric Morin. I want to talk to you today about a concept called organizational ceiling. And organizational ceiling, what it does is it limits what the organization can do. It limits literally where an organization can go. And the idea is that, assuming you're, for instance, $1 million dental practice, if you're $1 million dental practice, then you have certain talents, abilities, skill level. Maybe you've had people that are in the same job doing the same thing that they've been doing for a very long period of time. And so what ends up happening is the organization as a whole, it gets stuck, right? It gets stuck in a way of doing things. And you'd have to look at the idea of, okay, well, if you walked in $1 million organization, if you went to $1 million organization and you walked into a $10 million organization, do you feel that those organizations would look different, right? If you walked in a $1 million dental practice versus a $10 million practice, would those organizations look different? Would you maybe be greeted differently? Maybe technology's different. What about the training level of that team, right? Do you think the training level of that team would be different? Maybe the talent level of the operations of the organization, maybe the marketing capabilities. And you start actually looking at it and going, man, it would really be a different beast, so to speak, at $1 million to $10 million. Well, how about $1 million to $2 million, right? Or, if your organization's maybe doing $2 million, or maybe you're doing $800,000, whatever it ends up being, maybe double where you're at today and look at that and say, hey, what if I was to want to double this? What would that look like? What would that actually mean as an organization? What would we do differently? How would we act? So the first thing I want you to do is you listen to this. I want you to just write down your organizational ceiling. So write down wherever you are today, based on your current talent level, your current abilities, your current team, write down right now where you feel like the maximum amount you could possibly produce is as an organization. As an MBA, when I say produce, I mean collect. Money's money. So, what do you think you could maximize as far as collections in your organization based on your current talent level, right? Technology, abilities. It's a really important thing to know. And the reason why it's so important to know is you got to think about it and say, okay, now, what if we wanted to move from $1 million to $2 million? What would have to change? Who would have to change? What job positions might I need? What skill level? Because as you move an organizational ceiling up, okay? And by the way, where does an organizational ceiling start to move from? If you think about that, where does an organizational ceiling start to move? What actually starts moving that is actually the vision of the CEO. So if you're the dental practice owner, you've got to actually start yourself, right? Where does this start at? This starts with the vision of the dentist and say, we're going to, in the next 12 months, I love that the idea of people set these big goals in January, but then there's no follow through. The vision doesn't change. Where we're going doesn't change. The capabilities doesn't change. It's interesting. People take the exact same team and expect a different result. Well, we've got to invest in that team to actually get the result we're looking for. So the first thing you would do is, now that you've said, this is my organizational ceiling, it's at 1.5 million or 1 million or whatever it ends up being. Then you'd say, okay, well, I want to get to 2.5 million. So then you want to get to 2.5 million, you have to list out all the things that you would need to get to 2.5 million, whether it be technology, whether it be training, whether it be space, whatever it ends up being. This is what we would need. And then the idea of organizational ceiling is, it's in a sense, it's a ceiling that is almost laid out, but it's laid out by the current team, by the current vision, by the current training. And so what ends up happening to raise the organizational ceiling, first thing we start is with vision, right? We got to know where we're going. So we say, hey team, we're going to move from $1.5 million to $2.5 million this year. To do that, this is what we're going to do. We're going to bring in tower leadership, or we're gonna whatever we're gonna do to advance the organization. What I mean by bring in someone like tower leadership is that the organization comes in and we train everybody up, right? We get everyone's skill set up, we get the leadership up, we get everyone moving the same direction, right? So now we start raising. Well, when you start raising an organization's acumen, training, ability, what's one of the first thing that starts to happen? Now, anyone who's ever tried to grow an organization knows this to be true, is you get pushback. And you get pushback because if you want to think about the reason you get pushback is that a current team member, when you go to raise the acumen, when you go to raise the standards, when you go to raise the numbers, they have a choice, right? Team members have a choice then. And they can either grow up. When I mean grow up, I don't mean as a intellectually. I just mean their acumen can grow. I mean that their drive can grow. That they get excited about the ability to make a change and to grow the organization and to move, right? This is why we want to hire growth-oriented people. Or they get frustrated. See, and it's, by the way, it's normal to get frustrated. It's normal when you're trying to grow an organization to have people become frustrated. Becoming frustrated is not a negative. Becoming frustrated is sometimes a great thing, because when someone gets frustrated, there's a decision that has to be made. And they either decide to move up and grow and become educated and become trained, or they decide to move out and move out of the organization. Now, I'm certainly not saying we're trying to push people out of an organization. That's not the point here. The point is, it starts with you as a leader in saying, hey, we've got to raise the standards of this business, the acumen, the growth, the training, the technology, everything. We're going to move it. And then everyone's going to grow, including myself, to meet that standard. We're all going to grow to meet that standard. We're all going to grow to get to the next place. We're all going to work together to get there. This is a team. And by the way, this is one of the reasons why I stress with people I work with, you want to hire growth-oriented people. You want to, at the very beginning of a process, you actually want to find people who are growth-oriented. Why do you want to find people that are growth-oriented? Because when you go to move the organization, they get excited. Believe it or not, if you have an entire team of growth-oriented people, they will continue to push the organization. And matter of fact, if you don't move the organization, they will move out. See, how great is that? Some of you listening to this, that might scare the world out of you. But don't be scared. As a matter of fact, even if you hire really, really talented people, guess what? They might leave. They might leave someday because you can't grow the organization fast enough. Believe it or not, you want an organization that is full of people who are talented. And you know why? Because they attract talented people. So this organizational ceiling, you've got to move the organizational ceiling up. Now, some of you listening to this, that might scare you, right? You might think to yourself, hey, I don't know if I want to move that fast. But great organizations, right, know where their ceiling is. Great organizations know where they're capped out. Great organizations know when they got to make a move. Now, some of you listening to this will say, well, I don't want to make a change because I don't want to lose Susie, and Susie's been with me for 20, 30 years. Now, let me ask you this question. When you go to grow, isn't the decision up to Susie whether she grows or not? Isn't the decision to grow up to Susie? Now, because if Susie sees herself, for instance, she might be an office manager today. And as you grow, you're going to need an operations manager, not an office manager. You're going to need somebody who as you build a leadership team and as you build systems, you're going to have to make sure they get done. Someone's going to have to oversee this. Because if someone doesn't oversee this, the dentist has to oversee it. And then you don't want to be a producer all day long and then end up also having to make sure everything's getting done. Matter of fact, some of you listening to this right now, one of your biggest problems is that you're trying to produce all day long and making sure everything gets done. And that's a problem. So understand, write down as you're listening to this, what's your organizational ceiling? And then what do you want it to become? And then write down a list of the things you would have to do, what talents you would need out of your team, how much acumen, training, growth you would have to do. Great organizations train people. Great organizations hire the best. There's a large convention coming up here in Atlanta pretty soon, and it's always interesting to me because there's these so-called consultants out there that'll teach you how to pay people the least. And then you want to know why you're miserable and you hate your job, right? And people are selling off to corporations. Hire great, talented people, but the only way you can maintain and keep talented people is you have to have an organization that maintains powerful people. You have to have an organization that's always moving and growing and changing and adapting and overcoming. And if you don't, great people will leave you. They will. Great people will move on. Some of you listening to this might say to yourself, hey, Eric, I just can't. I had someone recently tell me this, which I love. Someone said to me, Eric, there's no good people in Atlanta. There's no talented people in Atlanta. Or how about this excuse? I love this. Millennials these days, millennials are the problem, right? They're all lazy. I've heard this, which is complete hogwash, by the way. Millennials are the problem, or I can't find any good people. I'm going to be the one to tell you, even if nobody will tell you, it's the organization. It's the organization. Hygienists, no hygienists. Assistants, no assistants. And doctors, no doctors. When you build an amazing organization and you have a moving organizational ceiling, you'll naturally attract people that are ambitious, that are growing, that are moving. Now, some of you might be listening to this thinking, well, Eric, I'm so far from that. Where would I even start? You start with first knowing where your organizational ceiling is. Then where you want it to become. And don't make it small, make it big, make a move, right? Believe it or not, it's easier to grow faster than it is to make small steps because you'll actually start going to get resources needed to make those jumps versus if they're small jumps, you won't get the resources. Let me say that again. If they're small jumps, okay, if it's 1 million to 1.15 or 1.2, I'm just going to tell you right now, what you'll tell yourself is all I need to do to get there is to work a little harder. Right? But you won't go get resources. You won't train up your people. You won't actually invest in your corporation. Set a good goal. Set a lofty goal. Set a goal that moves and motivates and inspires and scares people. Hell, let it scare you. But great organizations, that's what they do. They move and they inspire and they motivate and they, right? You'll start to feel like, at first it'll seem scary because people will leave your organization. But then you'll attract the best and the brightest and the most talented. So I'm telling you right now, look at your organizational ceiling. Know where it is. Write a list of the things you've got to do to move that organizational ceiling. Get the resources. Hire the training, right? Come to the workshops. Get the things in place. Have a plan. Have a strategic financial plan. Not some financial plan that shoves all your money in a 401k, but a money a plan that truly invests back in your business. One of the reasons why you guys never hit the goal you're supposed to hit is because you got all these people out there that are telling you to invest everywhere but your business. This is just so foolish. It makes me frustrated when I think about it. Guys, these companies are more interested in growing their own portfolio than yours. If you don't believe me, they'll come and they'll brag about how many assets under management they have. You got to put money in your organization and invest back in it. But you can't do it if you don't know where you're going. Vision is power. Know where your cap is. Look, every great organization needs to know where their cap is. Hey, based on what we're currently doing, that's all we got. That's all we can do. Don't get frustrated. Go get resources, right? Don't whine about it. Go do something about it, right? Get excited. Look, this is great. But if you want to move from $1 million to $2 million, And by the way, is it possible to move from $1 million to $2 million in 12 months? Yes, absolutely. But not with small-minded thinking. And not with people who push back when you want to make a simple change. So listen, I'll be honest with you. Anyone listening to this, I have a bias. I'm an ambitious person. I believe in moving the needle. I believe if we're going to fight against corporations that are coming in and taking over independent dentistry, we got to put the resources around it. And we got to make sure we make the moves. But the moves have to be strong, strategic, intentional. So if you need help on this, listen, reach out. Do not hesitate. There are people that are there to help you. Reach out. Hey, I heard this podcast. What did you mean by organizational ceiling? What does my organization need to do? You probably need to get some eyes on this, right? You probably need someone looking at this from an objective standpoint and saying, hey, these are the things you can do. And by the way, don't be scared. Great organizations go get help. Let me say that again. I'm going to make sure I'm intentional about that. Great organizations go get help. All great organizations. If you don't think Coca-Cola has a board of advisors, how about Apple? Right? These companies have boards of advisors for a reason. Get people looking at what's happening in your practice and make a move. Don't get complacent, right? And look at your organization. Move your organizational ceiling. I'm telling you, it'll change your financial life. It'll give you more money to reinvest. It'll give you more money for retirement. It'll give you more money for accumulate. And it'll give you more money to compete. And believe it or not, you'll wake up with a happier team who's better paid, who's more driven, who takes things off your shoulders and will make your life a lot easier. So go get focused on that today. Appreciate you listening to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Listen, don't be complacent. All you got to do is hit subscribe. And if you hit subscribe, heck, I'm going to send a message to you once a week, right? And then that grows your organizational ceiling just by hearing another message, just by getting another thought process, just add to your acumen. And this is absolutely free. If I can't get you to hit a button, you probably won't do anything else, right? So hit the button. I mean, it's really hard to, it's not hard to hit click. So subscribe, get connected. If you need additional help, then reach out. We'll be more than happy to help you. But click the button, hit subscribe, get connected. We look forward to helping in any way we can. Guys, have a great one. Get excited, get motivated, figure out what your organizational ceiling is, get aligned, get a plan, and move forward. Have a great day.